Hello and welcome to another video where we are talking about the phases or stages of spiritual awakening. In this video, we are going to talk about the spiritual ego. This is a fun one, so we're going to get into it. Before that, hello, my name is Devon. I help people on their spiritual awakening journey and to assist you in embodying your divine self as much as possible. Welcome, welcome. What is a spiritual ego? So, this is a fun one. Spiritual ego is what happens after the awakening, after this big spiritual awakening. Then what happens is there's this thing that forms called the spiritual ego. There's a lot of people in the spiritual community that are stuck in this phase. It is what it is. I'm just going to put it out there. What the spiritual ego is it's identifying, it's attaching to an identity based on your spirituality. So this is where it's an inflated sense of self because of spirituality. So personally, I went through it a little bit. It is pretty normal to go through a spiritual ego phase. Some never get out of this phase, and then some it lasts shorter, some last a little longer, and then some people never get out of it. Is what it is. But what it is it's attaching to this identity of being a spiritual person, a spiritual leader, a spiritual whatever. But it's from a judgmental place. And that's the key. So I remember when I was going through the awakening and I don't know, I was in some other phases too when this kind of formed and I looked at other people that were asleep, so to speak, and I was like, and I felt that I was superior in a way because I had this awareness. And then I went through another massive dark night of the soul, and that spiritual ego went away. And then it's a weird phase. It's one of these like you have all this awareness, you've gone through the sponge phase, you've gone through all these things, and you know all of this stuff that's going on, and then you're like, well, I see things from a different perspective. And so, I'm spiritual. I see things, I know things. And it's still an ego thing. It's still an identity. It's still, well, I'm cool because it's kind of that energy. It's very judgmental. This is when you're dealing with a spiritual teacher and then you feel that undercurrent of judgment. That's that spiritual ego in play. That's the, oh yes, well, yeah, I'm further along on the journey, so or like I've, done all the spiritual things, so it's that. And the funny thing is it's counterintuitive to the actual experience of being a spiritual being, having a human experience, because it's still an identity. And that's the biggest thing, is it's an identity thing, and it's also a judgmental thing. And so ultimately the goal is to get through this phase and lose that spiritual ego so that you can get into the last phase that we're going to talk about on the next video, which is alignment. And that's when you're truly in this place of operating from your set of experiences without judging other people in their journey. So this can look like those who are judging people for the way they eat, those who judge people for what they put on and in their bodies in any way. This is those who are like, oh, well, you know, you're not living in an earth house. You're living in you know, a steel building, and it's that kind of thing. And so it's still a form of judgment, but from an awareness spiritual perspective. It's a kind of weird thing, but the thing is I really want to touch on this because are in this if you're in this phase, I'm going to be straight up, you're probably not watching this video. But for those of you who are watching this video, if you are in this phase, understand you going through a spiritual awakening does not make you better than other people. That's the biggest thing. It's your soul chose to do this so that you can help raise the collective. And doing that does not come from a place of judgment. Doing that comes from a place of humility and understanding and compassion for others in their journey. And it's really coming from a true place of wanting to help people without this need to fill the own ego by being better than because you're a spiritual being or having the awareness of spirituality. This also sadly is it creates a situation where a lot of people have been hurt by other people in the spiritual community because you have people who are in a very vulnerable state who are trying to get help on this journey because it is not for I heard the weak, but I don't want to put a label on it. It's a doozy of a journey. If you chose to go through this awakening, it can be brutal at times. It can be so weird and so challenging, and you're going through all of these things, and you don't know which way is up and which way is down, and how to be a human and how to be spiritual, and all of these things. And so you're seeking out help, and then a lot of times people will find themselves with a mentor who has a massive spiritual ego. And then they will get wounded in some way because they're being judged by somebody that's supposed to help them from a humility place. So it's really this is the one that really bums me out because you do see a lot of spiritual teachers and leaders who have this ego, who have not dissolved the spiritual ego, and they're trying to help they're helping people, but it's from a place of judgment and I'm better than. And it bums me out. But it's part of the journey. And I just want to say this. If you have experienced this, compassion 1,000%, and just know that you were met with an example of what the spiritual ego looks like and how damaging and painful that can be. And so just know that that was part of your experience so that you can shift out of the spiritual ego and truly genuinely help people. I'm not saying people with spiritual ego don't help people. I'm just saying that there are limits to how much they can help people because they are coming from a place of judgment. And there is only so much you can help somebody if you are judging them in the process of trying to help them. And so, this is something like you've got a yoga teacher who's trying to help you with yoga, but then they're looking at you like, well, if you wouldn't eat the types of foods that you ate, then you could do yoga better. It's that kind of shit. And it's just, it's the people who are doing these elaborate morning routines and then judging you because you have 5 minutes to meditate in the shower because you got to get your kids to school. It's that kind of shit. And it really does. My ego gets a little pissy about it. Um, but it's all good. It's all a part of the journey. I just really want to touch on this because I hope to get the awareness out there so that those who are in their spiritual ego can look at that and go, okay, I'm still judging people. And maybe I need to do a little more inner work so that I don't judge others for where they're at on their journey because we're all having our own journey and it's all beautiful and it's all wonderful. It's all part of the divine plan and it's all great and wonderful. We all have free will. We all go up and down on these vibrations. We all go back and forth. It's an experience, it's a journey, and it's all beautiful and it's all wonderful and it's all awesome regardless. Anyways, so um there is a spiritual narcissism, and this is a weird one because it seems like an oxymoron. But what this is somebody who is fixated on perceived spiritual greatness, and then they lose touch with their humility and their empathy for other beings. And so that is kind of a very precise, beautiful definition of what I was explaining just a minute ago. And so it sounds weird, but I just want you to be aware that there are people who are spiritual narcissists and just to be aware of that. If you are going to somebody and you are feeling like they are judging you, you are feeling like they lack empathy for your experience, just pay attention to that. The thing where it gets confusing is there are methods. So when I coach people, when I help people and I'm spiritually mentoring people, what I will do is I will hold them in their highest vibration. And so there's a difference here because the thing is what will happen is there's a simultaneous thing of holding that person in their highest vibration. So I'm not going to be like, oh my gosh, I'm so, you poor thing, you're going through just the hardest thing. Because I know your soul is putting you through this experience for a reason, and you're going to come out the other side beautiful and better than now. At the same time, there is also going to be empathy and compassion, and I'm not going to push you or judge you beyond, well, I'm not going to judge you, period. And if I do, I will acknowledge it, I will admit it, I will apologize for it, and I will do some self work and be like, where did that come from? The thing is I will have empathy and compassion for you while simultaneously knowing that your soul is pushing you through this experience. You may be going through a divine storm. That shit sucks. Like that sucks hard. But I'm not going to sit there and wallow in it with you. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, you're an empowered sovereign being. You're going through some shit. You have the strength and the ability to get through this because you are so awesomely, awesomely you. And I'm going to help you tap into that inner strength. That is different than going to somebody who is like, well, I don't even know how a spiritual narcissist would coach somebody. I really don't. But I'm trying to think of an example to go off this. So if I go to a spiritual narcissist for coaching, what does that look like? That looks like, well, you just need to change your morning routine. You just need to blank, blank, blank. They're going to tell you that's a big part. So they're going to judge you, and they're also going to tell you what you should and should not be doing from a judgmental place. It's not going to be a suggestion. It's not going to be, let's figure out some things that you can do in your life to make this easier on you. It's going to be, well, you drink soda once a month, and that's why you're going through this. Like, or you made this choice and so that's why, or you chose to do this, so you know, if you did my morning routine, you wouldn't have to deal with that. Okay, it's a little extreme, but hopefully you understand what I'm trying to say, because this is a very, very difficult thing to navigate, especially if you are just starting out on this journey. And so use your internal guidance system above all else. Always, always use your own internal guidance system, period. End of discussion. That is literally internal guidance over everything. Now, that being said, what you can do is you can ask, is this spiritual teacher in my highest good to go to for assistance? And you are going to get your spirit team, your higher self, you're going to start to get the notions, these intuitive like hits or some guidance of some sort that's going to let you know if this is resonant. And the thing is also know, again, you're an awesome sauce spiritual sovereign being. So if you do find yourself in a dynamic where you are being guided by somebody who is a spiritual narcissist, you're going through that for a reason. And it's helping your level of awareness so that you can have that experience and do what you need to do with it and come out even awesomer on the other side. So just know that as well. Again, because like I'm not judging. My ego is judging the spiritual narcissist. Absolutely. My soul understands that's part of this, and that allows other people to have different experiences on their journey that their soul is going to call them to have. So, you know, I give grace to the whole situation. I just want the awareness out there so that you can, one, educate yourself and be aware. Two, if you are in the spiritual ego and you're judging other people because they're having their experience and they're not as awake as you and they're not doing these cool spiritual things that you're doing and all of that, check yourself. Check yourself. If you're looking at other people through that lens, that's ego. And that's directly opposite of the goal of operating from an awareness of a spiritual being having a human experience. Check that. And it happens. It absolutely happens. My ego pops up all the time. It's a part of us. Your ego is a part of you. So it's going to pop up. It's just checking it, especially when if you get into a position where you're helping other people navigate their spiritual awakening, really please check your own ego, because it can be so damaging to somebody in such a vulnerable state when your ego comes up to play. And so kick that ego into the back seat, let your higher self take the steering wheel for a while, and let your higher self steer that session. Okay. My little soapbox. A little soapbox. It's also it can be very performative. So that's the other thing too. This is where it's, again, like I talked about the morning routines and the this and the that, and it's these elaborate things. And obviously, like if you have the ability to have these elaborate morning routines and these elaborate nighttime routines and all of this stuff in the middle, I'm not judging that. What I'm saying, if you have that ability, freaking mwah, huzzah, that's fabulous. There are some of us, who chose different paths that don't have that ability. And so we're trying, it's this like, how can I sneak in 5 minutes of connecting with my inner self so that I can show up better today when I have all this whole laundry list of shit that I need to get done. Um, it's different strokes for different folks. People are on their own journeys, and helping each other from a place of non-judgment is the best gift we can give to anybody else and ourselves. That's what really helps this ascension process so much. Just I can't say better, but you know what I mean. Like, better still a label, it's still a judgment, etc. Anyways, um there's also people who will engage in spiritual practices for the appearance over the experience. So that's something else that will kind of cue you into this. So and this can be something like, this was where my spiritual ego kind of came up, was like, I have to meditate, and then I have to do this, and then I have to do that, and then I have to eat this way, and I have to do these things, because if not, I'm not spiritual. um and again, that's an ego identity, because what that is I am now a spiritual person, and so I have to do all of these things so that I show up and people know that I'm a spiritual person. That is still an ego identity. And I did it. I absolutely did it. It's like I had to do the crystal water, I had to do this, and I have to do that. Now I still do a lot of those things, but it's coming from a different place. It's coming from a place of, I'm doing that because it's authentic to me, I enjoy it, and I want to do it. But if I don't do it, I'm not judging myself. If I don't do it, I'm not feeling less than. If I drink a soda, I'm not beating myself up. If I go out to a concert, I'm not beating myself up because I should be out in nature meditating and talking to spirits. It's that kind of thing. That's really where it's discerning of, am I doing this because it's authentic for me? It's a part of my spiritual experience, and it's because that's what's in alignment with my soul. Or am I doing this because that's what I'm supposed to be doing, because that's what spiritual people do? That's, again, when you're doing these, I have to do this, I'm supposed to do this, I should be doing this. Those are all ego concepts, and they can still show up in a spiritual way. So I need to, where, again, I do all of this, but I love crystals. So I love them. Crystals are my jam. But I have to wear crystals because that's what spiritual people do, or I wear crystals because I love crystals and they make me happy and they make me tap into my soul self, and I love them and they help me on my journey. It's a different way of looking at them. It's an attachment thing when you have to do it because that's what spiritual people do. Hopefully that makes sense. It's not expecting to go on some soapbox tangents here, but here we are. So hello, you met a little bit of my ego in this video. Um, the biggest thing to do when you are in, okay, the biggest thing to do if you are experiencing some of this spiritual ego and you want to dismantle it a little bit, is to continue to do the inner work. Continue to look at it, because what can happen is you go through the spiritual awakening and you lose some of this old ego identity of like, this is what made me be then. Now what makes me me is my spirituality. And so it's an attachment. And so that's really what to look at. A lot of times it can also be an avoidance mechanism. I did this as well, where you're like, well, if I can just tap into the spiritual being, then I don't have to deal with unprocessed traumas and stuff that's going on in the human form. So I can just circumvent all of that and just tap into my spiritual self. And I don't have to look at any of that. I don't have to integrate any of that. I can just write that off and not have to look at any of it. And all this unhealed shit that I never wanted to look at, I don't have to look at anymore. I can just spiritual bypass and just be spiritual. That's another, it's another way it can show up. Um, and so continue to do the inner work. Continue, understand being a human means you get to experience the range of emotions. That's what being a human is. You get to, that's the guidance system. And so when you don't allow yourself to express and move through emotions, it will trap in the body. And so allowing yourself to go through all of these experiences and to tap into that and allow these things to move and allow yourself to really do these different methods and mechanisms to integrate all of these experiences and to allow these trapped emotions and things like that to move, that's also a part of where you can fully integrate the spiritual ego too, because it's really cool to be a spiritual person and to show up and be the spiritual person and to talk about all these things and to have these experiences and to know these things, but be mindful if that's what you're attaching to. um so yeah, this one's a little weird. But hopefully you understand what I'm talking about. And yeah, let's see. Anything else that I missed here? Yeah. Continue to do the inner work, integrate, practice discernment. Discernment is different than judging. Discernment doesn't feel yucky in the solar plexus. Um, I was very subconscious. I talked to my daughter about discerning versus judging, and that's how I explained it to her. So discernment is looking at a situation and understanding it from multiple angles and doing what's best for you. Judgment, you can feel in your solar plexus, which is around your belly button. That's that gut feeling. If you're looking at a situation or something and you're just like, you'll feel it in the solar plexus. But that's the biggest way you can know. You can discern between your discernment and judging. Um, humility and compassion. And that's the other thing too, is being able to be, to have gone through all of these crazy, awesome, cool spiritual things, but still have humility about it. And just like, yeah, man, like I was seeing through walls for a little bit. It was wild, but you're not attaching to it. You're not saying that, like, well, I had this. Have you done this? Have you had this experience yet? That's still judging. It's, oh, yeah, how was your experience? Oh, I didn't go through that part, but I was vibrating up out the bed sometimes or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, that's that kundalini awakening and ascension. It can cause your whole body to vibrate. It's a weird thing. But um it's you're coming together, you're having compassion, you're not judging, you're not like, well, I had more experiences than you, so I'm more spiritual. Like dude, a tree is more spiritual than any human. So moving right along. Um, but anyways, so yes, hello, you met some of my ego in this video. And again, like I said, it's a process, it's a journey. It's don't get stuck there. And especially personal recommendation. Please don't help other people from a spiritual ego standpoint or just an ego standpoint in general. The ego is going to pop up sometimes and it happens, and it's just really being so mindful of that and being able to check that so that you can show up and really truly help people if that's what you're called to do. A lot of us going on the spiritual journey are called to help people, and so or the planet in some way, animals, plants, etc., and so just do your best to continue to integrate that, continue to integrate it, and just don't get stuck there. Okay, with that, I'm gonna leave this here, and I will see you on the last video, which is where we talk about full alignment and integration. We'll see you on that one. Bye.